Tonight's theme, when I read the poem that I wrote for tonight, it was determined that it didn't nearly fill all the time that I was given. And so an angel appeared on one shoulder and said, "Leave them wanting more, just do the one poem." And then the ghost of my mother, my Jewish mother, appeared on the other shoulder and said, "Wouldn't it be nice if they knew you had a new book out? Why don't you read something from that book?" The two argued for hours and came to the conclusion that maybe if I just read one short poem from that book before the one for tonight, that would be okay. So I have a new book of poems out. It's called The Tokyo Van Nuys Express. It's poems I wrote in the summer of 2019 when my wife and I left our kid, whose name is Jude, at summer camp here in Southern California, while she and I went off to Japan. Here's a short poem from that. It's called All That We Miss. We wake up to news of an earthquake in Southern California, which is a shame, as I wanted to take Jude to his first earthquake. Experience the father-son bonding of huddling in a doorway. Tell him with my wisest voice, "No, son, don't drop and roll. That's if you're on fire. You want to duck and cover for these." I suppose this is just another sign of him getting older and finding his own way. The earth shook in Southern California today, and with all my fatherly powers, I couldn't do a thing about it. The ghost of my mother is pleased. This is the poem I wrote for tonight's theme. There's nothing I like better than a writing assignment. Here it is. This is called All's Well That Ends Well. I picked up a copy of Shakespeare's play All's Well That Ends Well. And by picked up, I mean I went to where it appeared for free in an online library with the name of Gutenberg, which is funny because Gutenberg was famous for printing, and this online edition is only bits of ones and zeros with no ink, movable or otherwise, involved. I felt a little guilty and wanted to send my money directly to Shakespeare's descendants, which, according to the internet, is nobody. So I guess that didn't end too well. Although everybody who's anybody, which is in fact everybody, knows his name, which is a pretty good legacy and more than most artists can hope for. Why, I've been writing poetry for decades and I barely know who it is in the mirror every morning. So I'll keep my money and maybe buy a coffee with it, or better yet, a tea, since that's what they drink in England, where, according to the internet and my broader knowledge, is where Shakespeare is from. I started to read the play All's Well That Ends Well, and 4 sentences in, when the Countess, who was the first person to speak, speaks again, my attention wandered, and I realized this poem was due today, so I skipped ahead to the end when the king of France or Italy or England, I presume, though God knows what happened in the many pages of dialogue I skipped, says, "The bitter past, more welcome is the sweet." And I realize that A, I use the words "and I realize" so often in poems I should be arrested, and B, I don't think I've ever quoted Shakespeare in a poem before. I mean, I think his work is in the public domain, though my knowledge of the law stops at I'm pretty sure I shouldn't kill people or jaywalk. And even if it wasn't his non-existent descendants are sure as hell not going to sue me, because very few non-existent people, based on my vast knowledge of their activities, ever sue anyone. Which leads me to the bitter past, which it feels like hasn't ended yet, as people are, as we speak, suing other people because they don't think they know how to count. The guy who invented math is rolling over in his I don't know, pyramid maybe, as almost 2 weeks into the great counting, the big bitter baby in the big white house, who by all accounts can't count past his 10 fingers and 10 toes, and there's no real evidence anywhere that he can even get that high, waggles his tiny election in the faces of all the people who probably have heard the name Shakespeare, but like me have not read very much, in the hopes he can turn our deserved sweet into 4 more years of blah. I'm hoping that this ends well. I'm hoping the bitter, which is all I can taste right now, turns sweet. I'm hoping that the news changes soon, but not before Sunday, because I don't want to have to rewrite this poem. All of this will end well, or all of this will end.